It's the Fox News thing. On Monday night, they're telling you that there's crime all around you in Philadelphia. On Tuesday night, they're telling you that there's crime in Detroit. On Wednesday night, they're telling you that there's crime in Atlanta. And on Thursday night, they're asking you to take a poll. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Sedition podcast. The only podcast where, you know what, I
where
was
you
hoping,
can find me and Nate.
Yeah, that's
the only podcast with myself, Mike Smith, and my co-host Nate Brady.
Hello. Yeah, I guess I should have planned something. I was hoping something would come into my head as I started that, but
we like inspiration. We like to put ourselves in positions where it's either fail or come up with something on the spot, and we come up with something more often than not. So that was a rare failure you all get to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I apologize to you and to the audience. And I apologize for what we're going to talk about today because, god damn it, I don't want to be talking about this stuff.
I made him. I forced his hand.
You may. I mean, it's something we've touched on in previous episodes, but now it's like let's just dive in and talk about. Well, I'll let you take over.
All right,
and kind of drive
today, as promised in previous episodes. We're going to be discussing migration, primarily where you can go to get your passport, what countries are safe for you to travel to, how to seek asylum as an American, that sort of thing.
I didn't think that's what. Okay, you flipped the script on me.
It's not bad.
No, but yeah, maybe we do need to do a whole episode on that. But no, I think we're going to be talking about the other kind of migration, which
the other kind of the worst kind of migration, or rather, the issues surrounding migration, which is the worst.
Yeah.
So here's some news.
Okay, give us some news.
Yesterday, Donald Trump took to Truth Social. I believe it was Truth Social.
If it's got that red annoying Nazi check mark, then yeah, it's Truth Social.
Yeah. Okay. Well, basically confirming something from Tom Fitton, which basically says reports are incoming that the Trump administration prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through the mass deportation program. Obviously, this is clickbait and whatnot because Biden doesn't have a invasion problem at the moment.
Yeah, come on. Did you say the good news part? Did you say that? Because I didn't hear you say that.
The good news part.
No, he literally led the tweet.
No, I didn't read his opener of all caps. Good news.
Yeah, good news. He said that was good news. God damn it. And
so to recap, and then Trump said "true" in all caps with exclamation points, basically affirming that he's going to turn the military on people in the United States to facilitate his mass deportation program. So this is something that we all sort of suspected, and it again is the only way forward that I could see his admin enacting that policy, the policy of deporting people living in America, presumably with illegal status or no citizenship. And this is probably what it felt like in early Germany as the Nazis took over. It was calls like this, and the promise of using the military that are very they feel echoes to me.
There's a book that's making the rounds that I have up next in my queue after I finish Character Limit, which is the story of how Elon Musk destroyed Twitter. But it's 100 days, Hitler's first 100 days.
First 100.
Yeah, so I really want to read that before we start the first 100 days of this next administration. But I think you're right. I bet this is kind of what it started to feel like, right?
I mean, I think that it's the frog in the pot, right? We've been slowly raising the temperature around the rhetoric of the people that the right don't like. Read anybody with brown skin. But yeah, they've been calling for deportations and ending of nationalized citizenship, birthright citizenship, and other programs as well. And now they have everything they need. They have SCOTUS, they've got Congress, they've got the Senate, and now they're going to have the presidency starting January 20th. So there really are no more guardrails in place, right? Trump is appointing all of his sycophants who will do as told and be loyal to the crown.
Well,
And
we can preface this whole discussion on immigration a little bit with appointing the sycophants. As people may know, what's been going around right now is this idea of recess appointments, right? So
right.
Trump is trying to get all of these absolute crazies in it leading the departments that they publicly despise. So we're talking
Yes.
like climate deniers leading the EPA, Matt Gaetz leading the Justice Department, which he would love to destroy from the inside, or possibly use as a way to get vengeance on people who are currently testifying against him, right?
Yep.
So this idea that Trump is going to force the Senate to go on recess for more than 10 days. It has to be longer than 10 days that the Senate is on recess. And then he gets to kind of just jam through these appointments without any Senate approval.
Right.
And how likely do you think this is? I've seen I've seen both sides from people that I trust on this matter saying this
Right.
absolutely will not happen and this absolutely will happen. And I'm just not in it enough to know. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I mean, they're really testing the boundaries of what people, like lay people, know and don't know
Right.
about Congress and the Senate in general. So the Senate goes on recess fairly regularly. They basically take the summers off, and they have other times that they take off.
Well, they
I'll
never
leave my
take
politics.
more than 10 days off is what I understood it to be, specifically
Right.
for this reason.
But the way that that works is sort of tongue in cheek. Never takes off more than 10 days, right? So it's like
Right.
there's a rotation where one senator calls minutes and then ends the session, and then they haven't taken the day off, and it's actually a very long and storied tradition at this point. But like, let's say that the worst were to happen. I don't actually know what the rules are. Say that the 51 or 2, I forget the count at the moment, Republican senators.
54, my friend.
Oh, 54. Say that they choose to break for recess. I don't know what recourse there is. I think that that's a simple majority vote, isn't it? Does that even go to a vote?
I don't know that 50 I don't know that they can do that. I actually don't know. I was, I called on you. You didn't have your hand raised, but I was hoping that you kind of had the answers there. And yeah, maybe we can do a little research and kind of tweet out or skeet out or post out. I don't want to offend the people that are anti-skeet, but I'm not sure, but I will say that I'm pretty tired of hearing there's no way he could do this. He absolutely couldn't do this, because almost every time somebody says that, he does the thing and then worse.
So the problem here is that we're talking about rational times, right? If a different president tried to do this same thing, and there is some precedent for this because Obama tried to do this when he held all chambers, and like I said in the previous episode, SCOTUS penned a strongly worded letter to him saying don't do it, and he basically just backed off and just said, "Oh, okay," and then didn't do it. But I don't think that pomp and circumstance is gonna carry anymore. Trump certainly doesn't give a shit about that. He will be doing what he wants to do to get what he wants done, and he doesn't really care about the optics of it. And if anything, we've learned that bad optics for Trump are actually great optics for Trump.
Yeah, that's so true. But I mean, the point on the side where it's like, no, this can't happen, is we just don't understand the bureaucracy involved in getting something like this done. And I've always thought that, and then things happen, and I'm like, well, I thought that would be a lot harder, but apparently it's just that easy.
Yeah.
So I hate being proven wrong or right. I don't even know. But
No, they're lifting the veil on a lot of norms in the political scape that we have all been told that have been true for years and years, and they just aren't. It's true if you believe in decorum and the sanctity of the political mechanism and all of that garbage that Democrats love to espouse every 2 to 4 years. But when push comes to shove and you have this populace in power, he realizes that he's not beholden to those rules. Those are more guidelines than anything. And if he chooses not to follow them and his loyalists are helping him not follow them, then there's nothing standing in the way. As I
yeah,
said earlier, the guardrails are gone.
I
And if the
mean,
guardrails were just a friendly handshake and a wink that you wouldn't do certain things, that doesn't apply to him.
I wanted to bring up, let me see if I can pull this up really quickly. I wanted to bring up how likely is it that Trump's appointments will proceed? And this was probably a prediction market.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
was going to say, are you on Predict It? You have to be on some
It
prediction
wasn't.
market.
It wasn't predict it, but it was probably. I don't use like Polymarket or anything like that, so I'm wondering
Right.
if it was Polymarket. I saw the screenshot earlier. Let's see. Let's just
My
pull it
guess
up real
is that
quick.
the odds were good that he could get
Well,
them passed.
well, they were basically all above 75%,
Yeah.
except for Matt Gaetz. With the news coming out yesterday, he was paying women for sex in at drug fueled Florida parties. Which, by the way, let me stop by saying, you want to go to drug fueled parties, great. You want to pay for sex, protect sex workers. I'm actually for legalizing all of that stuff, but now we're talking about underage girls being involved. All of this like really, really bad stuff. And yeah, how can that guy lead the Justice Department? Just how? So yeah, it looks like I don't see it exactly, but the point was it was like 78% for Tulsi. I actually think RFK Jr. was one of the higher ones as well, and you're shaking your head. And Matt Gaetz was like 25%.
Right.
The point of
Playing the devil's advocate here, Matt Gaetz does have some credit to his name in the fact that he is a politician and has been for a number of years. He has a law degree, he practiced law.
right.
He, on
Oh, here it
paper,
is.
could be a plausible person that might be considered for this position, certainly more so than Tulsi Gabbard.
Right, right.
Oh, these are each position, I see.
Yeah, yeah. It's not one or the other. It's buying the event contract on either side. So yeah, Tulsi and RFK are above 70. You have some like obvious ones that are just no Republican is going to turn these down. Like Mike Huckabee, Ratcliffe. These are all over 90%. For the people that aren't watching this and are just listening. But Hegseth, who you're like, come on, this guy who has like white nationalist tattoos as a Fox News co-host. This guy even is 76% likely. RFK Jr. anti-vax to lead HHS is 76%. Tulsi Gabbard, who many have argued with no proof that she is a Russian asset leading national intelligence, 79% likelihood to get confirmed. And then you go to Matt Gaetz with, hey, thankfully we draw the line at a alleged sex trafficking pedophile. Well, that's good, I guess.
I'll point out some other things about this, but that Polymarket is a Thiel investment, basically, where they try and they're definitely politically motivated by the right to try and make some outcomes eventualities. And I'll point out that of all the names on this list, none of them have more than a 5-figure market cap or market volume rather.
Yeah,
Except Matt Gaetz, who's at 2.3 million. So the next highest is Tulsi, no, excuse me, RFK Jr. at 61,000.
yeah.
And Matt Gaetz's betting lines have caught his volume up to 2.3 billion.
And if
So
you are
something funny might be happening there.
maybe, but
This
also
may
I
be
would
a very
say
slight Peter Thiel saying, I don't think this is the right guy for the job. I'm going to buy a bunch of no's and try and get this in front of the president elect.
it's crazy. I mean, the flip side, you could make a ton of money if you're buying the yes on this because you're gonna make over 3 to 1 on your money here. So I the reason why I went
I
down
also
this
just
road.
want to stop you there, and I want to
Okay,
say how disgusting it is that we're allowed to bet on this sort of thing in the United
we're
States.
not.
But
We're not.
oh, are we not?
No, actually
We're,
Polymarket doesn't take US. I guess you
currencies?
can't be in, yeah, can't be in the US technically, I guess, and do this, but we'll note that I don't think we've talked about it on the pod. Right before the election, maybe a couple days before, Robinhood, the popular consumer trading app
Yeah.
in the United States, released their version of event contracts where you could basically, I thought it was a law that you could not bet on US elections in the United States, but what they did was turned it into a security, this futures contract that you could
Yeah.
then trade. Very almost identical to how you would do it with a poly market or a predicted or whatever. I don't know how they were able to get away with it, but yeah, that landed
Well,
a
I'll tell
couple
you how
days
they're able to
before.
get away with it.
Hmm.
There's somebody like Matt Gaetz running the DOJ.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
They just don't care about the law unless you're going after their guy.
Yeah. My point in starting all of this was like, okay, let's first look at the flow. How do the appointments all get through, and after that, then can these immigration policies, can the things that he's trying to do, getting the military involved? We're talking about, in my estimation, my prediction is doubling or tripling deportations within the first year. That involves getting detention facilities built and all of that. It starts here. It starts with like, okay, does the director of Homeland Security get through? Does does what's his face get through, the former leader of ICE? These are the people that are going to determine whether Trump's immigration policies are going to take effect. And I would say largely, yeah, this isn't even a this isn't going to stop any of that. We're not going to get any reasonable people in leadership positions that are going to stop anything that we're about to talk about.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Every single one of Donald Trump's appointments, whether they be, on their face ridiculous or, a lifelong Republican sycophant who's still also mostly MAGA, they're going to do his bidding no matter who it is.
Right.
And so, like you say, the DHS appointment is going to oversee ICE ultimately, and they're going to be handing out instructions. It's no longer going to be we're looking for criminals committing crimes. It's going to be we're looking for illegal immigrants in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's alarming. It's very disheartening for sure. At this stage, it feels still very abstract to me. And you and I have talked about this a lot offline, where there's a lot of infrastructure and support that's going to be required in order to carry out these sorts of mass deportations and everything involved with that, as well as a lot of legal battles and questions. So I think the way that I'd like to just go forward is let's talk about what is required for them to realistically try to deport 10 to 15 million illegal immigrants from the United States.
Okay.
So
Sure.
at a high level.
At a high level, well, it would at first require 220,000 to 400,000 additional enforcement officers. So that's whether it's partnerships with local police, whether that's getting the military involved, whether that's adding ICE agents. It's a lot of people,
Yeah.
and that's not free. That there's a cost. There's a cost to that.
Yeah, there's a cost associated with that. We'll get to that at the end.
Okay.
But,
So there's
but
that.
yeah, I mean, like you said, there's roughly 23,000 ICE agents employed in the United States by the United States to date, and those aren't all like boots on the ground style ICE employees. These go as high and as low as guys doing scheduling and positioning and intelligence and some other aspects that aren't really involved in knocking on doors and arresting people.
Right.
Um, to deport, and currently, they're what are we deporting? You told me, and I've forgotten. A million or so.
We're at
Uh,
1.1 million, and that wasn't just straight. I think those numbers were. I think we looked at them when we were talking
those
about it at the
included
time.
numbers of self
Self
deportation, which
deportation.
is
Yeah.
and it's, I don't say mainly, but I think it was 20 to 30% of that number was people who were here on work visas or on things of that nature, and those had expired, and they were informed by ICE that they needed to leave the country, and they
Right.
just simply acknowledged it, and boarded a plane and left. So that's what we mean by a self deportation. So there's already uh, some evidence that that is a successful technique in this operation. Now, I think it begs the question of, if you have 23,000 ICE agents and many of them are trying to find these people who are on work visas and determine whether or not they are expired or expiring, engaging with them in ways to ask them to leave the country, voluntarily, you're going to try and turn that up by a magnitude of 10, right? Because he says 10 million, and it's at 1 million a year so far. So he's going to try and 10x everything.
And that's not going to happen in a year. That's why my estimation is I think they are going to successfully double or triple deportations in the first year.
Wow. I'm not sure about that estimate, but the one thing that has been said by Trump, and we brought it up earlier, is that he has acknowledged that there will have to be some military intervention. So the way that I foresee that happening is them actually calling on the National Guard and bringing up reserve officers to try and bring more people into the fray to try and help in these efforts, because the the lion's share of deportations are not voluntarily.
Oh, of
They
course.
are
Yeah.
people who are forcefully deported from this country to another place, and usually held in detention for some time,
Right.
while legal battles ensue because they believe that they're there legally and they have their day in court. So um, I have numbers here. There's roughly 500,000 National Guardsmen, Army National Guardsmen, in the United States, not presently deployed or otherwise working remotely, who could be called upon to assist in this deportation process. Whether they will or not is sort of yet to be seen. But my guess is that if you became a National Guardsman, either through the reserve or otherwise, that perhaps you
Oh, they'll do it. There's
aren't
no question about
against such
that.
things.
Yeah, if your government asks you to do that, I mean, they'll get them. They'll get the people that they need to do this. The logistics of training them all. I mean, oh my god, it's gonna be a mess.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it's gonna be violent and it's gonna be a mess. Um,
it's going to start off as a mess, but you're right, it will ramp up in terms of violence, and we're going to see some truly heinous and ugly things before the end of it.
and if it's here's some of the scary parts of this. Well, this is all scary, right? But it would require, if we're going to do this legally, it would require legal processing of all of these individuals, which would mean crazy backlogs. And one of the ways to alleviate that is, okay, well, now we need 1,100 new courtrooms and 1,100 new judges. Um, we need 24 times the number of detention facilities, ICE detention facilities. Um, I where is this money? Where's this money coming
Which
from?
which means additional bodies on the ground in the way of correctional officers and or detention officers, whatever you
Right,
call them, people running
right,
these facilities who aren't necessarily ICE agents, but
right.
more akin to prison guards and the other services they're in. I mean, everything that it takes to run one of these centers is going to require more bodies, basically.
You know,
And where are we going to get all that? Yeah, there's basically going to be, and I want to point this out because we are currently at like an all-time low, and we have been for many years in recruitment. in terms of the military presence in the United States.
Sure.
We just don't have people signing up to be part of the armed services as with as much regularity or frequency as we have in decades past. And so you already have this well, you already have this challenge where people aren't signing up to be a part of your federal military mechanization.
I don't want to be.
How are you going to incentivize people to do that without something like either a draft or direct conscriptment? I don't.
Is
there a way?
I don't want to rain on that parade, but man, I would bet you some money there's people willing to be a part of this.
But let me ask you this. If you run, let's say that your employment is that of a, I don't know, you work at a service shop or something. You're a middle class worker, you work on cars, let's say. And let's say you are full MAGA and you really are for this deportation program. You want to see it succeed.
Okay.
And they put up the signs that say enlist now.
Okay.
And you get to the benefits line and it's like you get to beat up brown people and you get to send them out of the country and we're going to pay you $26,000 a year. And you're already making 30 grand.
I don't think
what are you going to do?
You're
not taking that job. I don't care how much of a MAGA loyalist you are.
Why do you think it's only is it only 26,000 a year?
I'm putting numbers out there.
No, I don't think that's.
I don't think they can beat market rate. I don't think that they're going to be able with the amount that they're going to.
They're going to give you health insurance. Some give you free education. Some get. I mean, yeah, man. I think you're underestimating the.
I don't think the people who are going to try and take these jobs are going to care about getting free education.
I knew you were going to go there.
They might view that as the enemy.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that you're very optimistic. I think that they already have the people to do this. I think that they already have the people to do this.
Not without some significant
it's shuffling. Yeah, it's definitely shuffling things around, but I think they have the bodies. I think the logistics of getting those bodies into the right places, I think, that's going to be a logistical nightmare. And I trust this administration and the people involved to figure that out properly? No. And that's why I think it's going to be hell on earth for a lot of people. It's going to be people dragged out of their homes by untrained, guerrilla outfits, basically. I mean, I don't know what other way to put it, but I think that I
don't know where those bodies are coming from. Where are these people? Are they shifting from army positions where they're on leave overseas or they're deployed overseas and we're bringing them home to help with this effort?
Well, I think, I mean, we can pull up the numbers, but I don't think you need to bring anybody home to do this. I think there's let me pull up some numbers.
Yeah, let's see what because I mean, like I said, 500,000 National Guardsmen. I think that I had some more stats here on this. Active duty Army has 461,000.
Right. Army National Guard has 325,000. Army Reserve has 176,000. And we're saying that based on these estimates, they believe I'm going to pull it back up here. It was something like 220,000. At a minimum, 220,000 additional law enforcement agents. They will hire more ICE agents. They will double ICE. They'll triple ICE. Okay.
Doubling ICE adds another 20,000 bodies, but
we're talking about that's 10. Yeah, I'm listen. Donald Trump is going to do this over 4 years. We're not deporting 13 million immigrants in the first year. It's going to be a buildup. I understand that. They're going to double ICE in the first year. Maybe they'll double ICE again in the second year, but you just doubling ICE, you're already 10% of the way there, according to the numbers that we're seeing of the additional law enforcement agents that you need to do a full 13 to 15 million people. Okay.
It's not just the body count. I agree that doubling ICE, it seems like something that is plausible. Like I could see them hiring an additional 20,000 ICE agents to try and further this effort. But there's all of the things that go along with that, all the other requirements that coincide with that.
Yeah.
They need transportation. They need lodgings. They need
Flight capacity would require, according to the numbers that we're seeing, there's been a few studies out here. This is where we're not pulling these numbers out of our ass. We'll link one of the major studies in the show notes. Removal flight capacity would need to increase by 47,000%. So, so
That's what I'm saying, is that the infrastructure is the harder part. Getting goons to sign up and do this stuff.
So yeah,
That's not necessarily.
We're arguing.
They're
Yeah,
going to be standing around City Hall going, "Where's the bus that takes me to the brown people?" And there isn't one.
That's we're arguing the wrong things here. That's why I'm saying, like, when I go back to
we need things.
We
I just want to point out that this is a multifaceted argument that comes from a lot of different directions and places, but it all amounts to a dollar figure that I don't see how they're going to cover.
It's trillions. And it's funny, right before we started doing this episode, I was scrolling through. I was like, did anything happen in the last 3.5 minutes that I need to talk about? Because that's how the current news cycle is. And I came across a meme, a Donald Trump meme, because I was on X, which means that everything that's going by me is pro-Trump, Elon, whatever. That had Trump like growing the GDP. I don't remember what the meme was, but it was just like Trump is the master of the GDP. By the time he gets out of office, he will have grown GDP. First of all, there's no way that 85, I'll go even higher, over 90% of MAGA knows what the GDP is. There's just no way they know anything about it or understand the implications of growing or reducing GDP. But mass deportation, according to these studies, in 2022 dollars, would cost $1.1 to $1.7 trillion loss in GDP, or 4.2% to 6.8%, which is catastrophic.
Which is not a recession; it is a depression.
It's catastrophic.
We're talking about food lines and everyone out of work. That's the type of numbers we're talking.
So we talked about this a little bit in our live show on election night, but I want to talk some about the economic costs of doing something like this. And
economic costs. Okay.
So the U.S. would lose $46.8 billion annually in federal taxes, and states and local taxes would lose $29.3 billion annually. And by the way, you might be saying, well, that's only really going to hurt California, those who are excited about these deportations. Actually, the states that it's going to hurt the most, other than California, are Texas and Florida, because they're home to about 47% of undocumented immigrants. So they would face severe economic disruptions. The argument here is that, well, from the other side is usually, well, okay, that's what undocumented households may be paying into, but they're taking so much out in food stamps, and that's so wildly uninformed. That's just not the case. They do qualify in many cases for emergency aid, like emergency Medicaid. And this is so very rare. It's not even a drop in the bucket compared to what they contribute annually in tax dollars. And these numbers
already, you're making the arguments against their speaking points that they're going to bring as for the reasoning of running this. I saw just today, I think it was, I'm going to blank on who actually it was, but they were proposing as a part of the cuts to the social safety programs, like you said, food stamps and others, is that the quote was something like, we wanted to change it from we want it to be more an emergency situation rather than like a way of life, basically saying that they're abusing the system. They live off of food stamps with the same level of existence as you and I. They buy whatever food they want, and then they save all their money instead of buying food.
It's so wildly untrue. And it's the same thing that the argument that you always see is they're violent, right? And then they'll show you undocumented immigrant murdered somebody in your, and they give you this one thing of evidence as these are the 15 million criminals that are in the United States because of this one person, and then we have to turn around and say, well, actually, immigrants per capita are less violent and commit fewer crimes than the average American per capita, and
Yeah,
you
it's
can't
like
get
we have to
through.
play fact checking
Yeah,
for all of these statements. And unfortunately, the MAGA base, they don't care about facts. They're just going to say whatever they can to rile up the people who only half pay attention.
right. Um,
In fact,
so
it's interesting. I want to go off on a tangent here for a
okay,
bit because I used to be on Twitter, as you know, um, before Blue Sky, and one of the things that I always found interesting about uh, late stage Twitter was the community notes sections of posts. Someone big would write something that at its face was obviously false,
right,
usually Elon,
yeah,
but tons of people.
usually Elon.
And you would say something that was factually incorrect, but it would be, it would be spontaneous and exciting. And even if it wasn't true, it riled people up. And then in a half hour or an hour later, whenever the community notes would show up and correct it, and Elon would know, and so would everyone else, I'm just going to leave that post up
Right,
because it doesn't matter that I'm being fact checked and that it says there next to it that I'm wrong. It's already reached 18 million people
exactly.
before that happened,
Yeah,
and so it doesn't matter. It's the Barbara Streisand effect in the worst possible way. And again, we used to have guardrails in effect for this. We used to have a legacy media system that would call liars liars, or at the very least say that they're not saying the truth, and it
right.
would insulate the downstream consumers from the person, the figurehead, the speaking mouth, where it would go through some filtration, whether you liked that or not. There is an argument there for maybe we should have fact checkers for some of these things. Maybe facts should matter.
Facts should matter. Um, okay, I
Or
want
we
to.
get to this point where, like you said, they're calling out for 15 million criminals to be deported, and the only crime that they've committed is being in the United States.
I mean, well, they'll say, okay, well, right there, they're already more. They're already more of a criminal because they broke into the United States. So right there, by definition, which I've heard before, all illegal immigrants are criminals.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
think by definition, no people are illegal, but
I
that's
like that
me.
a lot better, but that's just you. I wanted to continue on kind of the economic impact here and talk about
All right, hit me.
the disruption in the labor market. Um, so deportation would remove 7.5 million at the very low end of estimates of workers, causing a just a serious labor shortage. So it's estimated that it would be 1.5 million construction workers, which is nearly 14% of the industry, 224,000 agriculture workers, and over 1 million hospitality workers. Just right there, just gone. You
And
think of
that's gonna help the GDP, right?
what's the downstream effect of that stuff, do you think? Um, you know, the 30% of those workers work in critical construction trades like roofing, plasterers, things like that. Those are all undocumented immigrants. But it's weird.
Electricians, yeah,
Nobody.
plumbers, like you said,
You know what's
road
interesting?
workers.
I have lived near. I live in an area that is probably more MAGA than a lot of the United States. And boy, I don't see people checking papers when they have the roofers that they need, or the house painters that they need, or the landscapers that they need, and they're getting
No.
them at the cost that they want. Because let me tell you what's going to happen if those people aren't here anymore and aren't in the labor force anymore. You think getting work done on your cute lawns is gonna
Mm.
cost the same? It's not. The price of everything is gonna go up. Losing 225,000 agriculture workers across Florida and Texas and California, what is that gonna do to the cost of goods?
Oh, it's gonna just destroy us at the grocery store.
Yeah, it's
It's what
insane.
it's gonna come down to is that you think that eggs and milk was expensive during that weird price gouging phase 2 years ago.
Right.
My God, you deport 225,000 agriculture workers.
Yep.
You wait and see. There's going to be milk and eggs rotting on the farms, and it's going to cost you $20 a gallon.
Yeah. exactly. I mean, you got to be lucky to live somewhere near a farm where you can hopefully just go buy it from the farm because it's going to be terrible. And those losses aren't just going to stop there. It's going to spread to US born workers because of the interdependent sectors. It's not
Yes.
going to just it doesn't just stop at okay, it's
No.
just agriculture.
No, agriculture feeds into livestock, feeds into well-being of people and their jobs. I mean, everything it's all interconnected. It's very complex, but it's very straightforward. If you can't get simple food, then neither can your food. If your food doesn't get to you, what's the
It's
next step?
That's just one very, very small example of the disruption that this would cause in the United States and probably globally. I mean, it definitely would hurt
Exports
trade.
are going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hurt. Oh my
Um,
God. We try and export so much corn, and what's going to happen? It's going to sit in silos. And
Wait,
it's
are you
going to
telling
rot
me
over time.
Monsanto will be hurt by this? Because I'm starting to. No. Anyway, some more numbers here, just going down the line of uh, things, at least in the labor market, this will affect. 1 million undocumented entrepreneurs contribute $27.1 billion in business income annually. And that's just a whole other sector of things that we don't think about. 158,000 undocumented entrepreneurs in local businesses provide, you know, essential community services that you don't think about, whether it's from nail salons to your favorite local Mexican food shops, things like that. I mean, those things are just gone. So obviously deporting these entrepreneurs would just service and local job disruptions it
That the market will fill. The free market will obviously fill those needs, right?
right, that's what's going
Because
to happen, right.
you're going to go as an unemployed younger white man right now.
Mm-hmm.
Once these people are all deported,
Right.
you're going to go and pick strawberries for, 5 cents a strawberry or whatever it
Under the
is,
table
right?
for 5 cents a strawberry and a place to live. I mean, that's what it's going to have to come down to, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I'm not saying, by the way, it makes it sound like we only want immigrants here to do the crap labor, so
No,
that
I'm painting straw men too. I'm fully aware that this is
okay,
not a fair statement or
okay,
stance from me, but I'm trying to make it as starkly understandable to, everyone
okay,
without getting into the nitty-gritty.
yeah. And I mean, so now you have to think about we touched about this a little bit on our previous episode when you're talking about deporting 13 to 15 million immigrants. Those
Mhm.
immigrants, they're not here by themselves. They're intermingled in homes where with people, including children, their own children, who have legal statuses, right? So removing those people, you're talking about there's numbers here that say 5.1 million US born children would face economic hardship and emotional distress from this. We're talking about 5.1 million US born children. So now we're not saying that deporting 13 million people doesn't just affect 13 million people, as we've already talked about with
Right.
labor and how that cost would fall over to you, but directly affects 5 to 15 million other Americans in those mixed homes.
In every single case, all of these uh, atrocities. I don't have a better word for it. So these terrible ideas of deporting people currently residing in the United States doesn't affect people in a one-to-one way.
No way.
It's
Right.
not I deported
Right.
Jim and only Jim suffered for it.
Right.
It will always have downstream issues.
Right.
Who does Jim work for? How does Jim provide for the economy around
Right.
him, and local and federally? How about the family of Jim? How do
Right.
those people affect people if they have to go with Jim, even if they are United States citizens? And so you're talking about this wide reaching spider web that you're trying to pull out of the country by force. And it's just going to cause misery and economic instability, and it's going to make us look ridiculous on the national or on the international stage.
And so I want to, there Florida already got a taste of this. So there was SB 1718, which passed in 2023, which led to, and this was an anti-immigration policy in Florida. And some of the key provisions were like private businesses with 20 or more employees had to do like a federal e-verify thing for employment eligibility. It criminalized the transportation of undocumented immigrants. It made it a felony for undocumented immigrants to use certain IDs for work. It just it put up more roadblocks.
Sure.
So basically, you wouldn't see landscapers or businesses being even able to use undocumented immigrants kind of as easily as they can right now. Because of that, Florida, because of those anti-immigrant policies, it led to, like you had pointed out, what you suspected: unharvested crops, stalled construction, labor shortages, and this has only been within a few months of this bill passing. And this is We're not talking about sweeping anti-immigration policies which Donald Trump is proposing. And already Florida hurt.
That's a really good point, and it's one that we really haven't touched on, is just the implication of doing mass deportations is going to cause stresses in both economic and societal ways. These people will become afraid of trying to earn money in certain ways because they're afraid that it's a risk they can't take. Even if there is nothing in place, if they don't double or triple ICE agents, they don't bring in the military, they don't do all of the things they're promising to do, just the threat of it will make it harder for these people to live in this country as they do today, which will have downstream effects, as we're saying here: food shortages, construction problems, just like you said.
This thing that happened in Florida with SB 1718 happened in 2010 in Arizona and 2011 in Georgia when they enacted very anti-immigration policies. Georgia lost $140 million in their labor shortages, caused $140 million in crop losses. And in Arizona in 2010, economists predicted a $48.8 billion annual shrinkage in that state economy and a 10.1% drop in tax revenues. I mean, we have proven again and again that this is not the way. And yet here we are. For what reason? What's the end?
I don't know.
Here?
Well, you know what the end game is. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we should explore that a little bit. I think that the end game for Trump was to win the presidency.
Okay.
So
I would argue
that I don't want to say what I want to say.
No, you have to say what you want to say, and I'll say it because I think it was the undertone. Maybe it wasn't even the undertone. It was the tone of Project 2025. It was the tone of a lot of white nationalists that supported Trump. It is that we are, and I say we as a white man, okay? Because we as white men are becoming the quote unquote minority in the United States. I think it was by 2028, I don't remember what the year was, that the white man, quote unquote, will be considered a minority in the United States. And those white men, the MAGA white men, are terrified of that happening. And this is a way.
Why?
Why?
What is it about being a minority that is so fearful?
That's interesting. They're not treated differently, according to those white men. I mean, it comes.
Can't as a minority I just live off of food stamps? As a minority I become a welfare queen and live the fat life like that?
That's it, right? Like as soon as we become the minority, suddenly we just
so
qualify
why wouldn't
automatically.
White men want to be minorities?
So I think that they just don't want to see more of people that don't look like them in places where they are. And it's just pure racism. That's all it is. That's all it is. I don't see any other. If you want to make the argument that it's crime. Okay, well it's already been disproven over and over again. It's not crime. Okay.
So I want to circle back to that one
Okay.
because it reminds me of what we were talking about a lot during the election and shortly thereafter when we were trying to look inward and try and realize like why didn't this work? What
Mhm.
was it about the messaging and all that? And crime is one of those things that you can have tons of statistics on and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
The general population understands crime as a vibe. It's literally, do I feel like my society, my direct, surrounding society it has a crime problem or
Mhm.
do I not?
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of Americans, they think that there is a crime problem wherever they are and showing them the math saying here are the statistics, here's the crime reports, here are
Yeah.
police reports,
Well,
there is no surge in crime, there's no crime wave going on, your feelings are wrong, doesn't resonate.
it's the
There's no way to talk
it's
people
the
out of
Fox
the way
News
they
thing.
feel.
It's the Fox News thing. On Monday night, they're telling you that there's crime all around you in Philadelphia. On Tuesday night, they're telling you that there's crime in Detroit. On Wednesday night, they're telling you that there's crime in Atlanta. And on Thursday night, they're asking you to take a poll if you think that there's more crime or less crime.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
There's definitely some of that, but again, I think we need to acknowledge that not everyone in America is watching Fox News. They're not
no, but
all getting
that's
their news from sources like that where
yeah,
they're being bathed in it.
right. It's all perception. It's
There are people out there who obviously and I'll just bring it back. We talked about this for the general election, who were told for the last 4 years that the economy is great, but they are themselves living paycheck to paycheck and feeling the stresses of that life and thinking the economy is so fucking great. How come I'm having such a hard time?
right. Yep.
And that's a perfectly valid way to feel. And I think that's the same with crime. If they're like, if crime is so low, how come everything feels so fucking scary to me right now? So it's a vibes thing, and I get that. And I do think that there's a large part of the voter base who aren't racists necessarily, who maybe they have some biases. We all do. Maybe they're a little bit bigoted. Maybe they are distrusting of people of different nationalities or colors or races or whatever. But I think that generally they just feel unsafe and they think there's crime. And when the other side, this campaign and Trump as the figurehead say, "I'm going to fix immigration," and that's where all the crime's coming from. You might feel at ease by going, "Man, I really do want to feel safe. I really do want the crime to end," and you don't really care about the minutia that's involved with that.
Yeah. I mean, but and so how do you combat that?
I didn't. I don't have that. I need to
Yeah.
get my notes out.
I mean, the only
That's
thing,
tougher.
the only thing
Because
that,
how do you fight vibes?
well, it's in my opinion, it's I think there are people that I've talked to that I've beaten over the head with. It's not a crime thing, especially with immigrants, over and over and over again.
Right.
That they now know it's not a crime thing, and it's just like we were talking about. They've been bathed in the opposite, and I think that the thing that we have to do is just try to keep getting the truth out there
It's
about all of these
it's
things.
hard.
And it is.
And I know for a fact that I hate this. I think probably you hate it too, but I don't like having these discussions with people. They're deeply uncomfortable to me. And being the guy who runs, does this podcast with you, looks up these facts for homework, and then has conversations when I drop my kids off at school with people I don't agree with. And I have to say that's just not the reality we're living. That's not true.
Yeah.
I hate it. I
Oh,
hate it so
I don't. I'm ready for that. Oh no, I thrive on it. I wish there was less of it, but I think you know that I am like, give me that uncomfortable situation, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell them. But I think that's just what we have to do for everyone at home. I think it's just don't give up on the truth. I mean, I'm not trying to like make some kind of mean quote here, but I think it's just, yeah, we just got to keep putting the truth out there and hoping that it eventually hits these people. Now, I don't know if we need to do it in a different way. The problem is it's so much easier, like you see on X and like you talked about with the community notes, it's so much easier to just say, bah, 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 crime is up 5,050%. And 81 million people see it and retweet it and whatever. And you go, ha ha ha, and you collect your X paycheck. It's a lot harder for you and I, to go, actually, let me research this. Let me give you, now I have to have 12 citations and, okay, I can't link CNBC because you're going to say that that's bullshit. So now I have to try and find a different, you know what I mean? It's hard, but we got to keep doing
it. And I've been thinking about that. We're on the very deep tangent off of migration here, but I enjoy it. It's an interesting subject. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days, just around how we phrase the facts of the matter. So you and I post-election called for playing more offense, less defense.
Right.
We need the elected Democrats, and we need people running for Democrat positions to stop playing defense. Don't disagree from the back foot. And it feels like that in this context where we're saying someone's going to post that bullshit and we have to go fact check them to death and to prove that they're wrong when no one's going to listen to that. It's the community notes problem. So what we need to do is get out in front of it. We need to have messaging that doesn't combat that directly. It says, here is the truth, and I'm yelling it loudly. Like I'm reminded of Bernie Sanders on his various campaigns, where all he did was talk about how beloved Medicare for all is as a concept to people. He didn't even answer questions. He didn't, how you're going to pay for it, blah, blah. He didn't care. He had answers. He didn't care because he's like, my messaging is this is going to work and everyone's going to love it. And he just kept focus on it. It's like whenever you see the debates between political rivals, they never respond to each other. It's, well, what are you going to do about blah, blah, blah? Then they turn to the camera and they say, here's what I'm proposing. And it has nothing to do with that, but it's facing a different fact that they're proposing and putting out in front of people's faces.
I mean, Bernie's
do more of that.
Bernie was a great point, by the way, is how are you going to pay for that? That the right would say over and over again about Medicare for all, about any of his plans, right?
Right? You mean Joe Biden or? Sorry.
But then everybody else on immigration, nobody is saying, how are we going to pay for this? This is such. Let me ask the people. You know what? Let me ask you, if you're listening, if you're still listening here, if essentially what it's going to cost. We don't really know the ramifications of it, but we know essentially what it would cost to put the bill of deporting 15 million people in the United States. Let's just say, because I believe it to be true, that universal health care for all is about half that. Which one would
it would cover the undocumented immigrants?
And it would cover them. Yeah. Which one would you rather rather have? Which one seriously affects your life more? And I mean, you could argue immigration affects your life more because it will. You'll see the effect of that if those people get deported. You don't know how much immigration affects your life positively right now. I would say I'll take Medicare for all.
I would take Medicare for all in a heartbeat. But also, I mean, you're talking about the like financial in national stages present.
Right.
So you're talking about not how many dollars out of my pocket is this going to cost. You're saying this is how much it's going to cost the federal government to do these things. Well, I'd like to just pivot for 1 second here to here's the ray of hope. Okay.
Give me the ray of hope.
I mentioned this one before, so this is my freebie. I did this in our appointments episode last time, but if you keep electing these clowns, they're not going to get anything done because they're clowns. They'll put on a good show because they're clowns, but they're not going to be effective at all. Second to that, the other thing that Trump campaigned on as his biggest selling point to everyday Americans and the working class was cutting taxes. He's going to cut taxes for the middle class. He's going to maybe make it so that tips don't get taxed. He's going to cut taxes if you make under a certain threshold. That's his whole thing. How on earth are you going to pay for this if you cut taxes across the board? Where is that money coming from? Are you going to do deficit spending like Reagan did? Are you willing? Because that's not going to work. Not as far into the hole as we are this time. Remember how much they love to talk about the debt ceiling and how much the U.S. debt is worth? What happens if you tack on $1.6 trillion every year for 4 years?
It doesn't matter to them.
Well,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter when they're in charge. We already know that. And by the way, before somebody corrects me, universal healthcare and mass deportation side by side, universal healthcare does cost a lot more. But I'm talking about uh, how much it would actually cost if you lost if you did mass deportation, not just the actual cost of deporting them, but the true cost, the true economic impact.
the economic
Yeah,
ramifications
right,
downstream. So
right,
how much will it cost given how much it's going to raise inflation and how much it's going to reduce the labor market and how
right,
much it's going to put projects
right,
back onto the right because of how far behind they're all going to be because they have
right.
no workers,
Versus
how
universal
many
healthcare.
layoffs there are going to be because
Right,
your business cannot succeed without the inclusion of undocumented immigrants
exactly.
because your partnerships with other companies rely on undocumented immigrants. It's such a wide reaching effect to remove these people by the snap of a finger like Thanos that you will destroy the country
And
overnight.
and the flip side of that is universal healthcare would you have a healthier labor force. You have a you just I mean for you know what that's a whole we should do a whole episode on universal healthcare.
We'll
That's
go to
coming.
universal healthcare.
That's coming at some point. But I think I have so much more that I can say on immigration. I think that we kind of hit on some of the big points, the broader economic effects, the impact on labor and industries, just the cost and logistics of it all. Is there anything? I mean, the social and humanitarian costs. Maybe we. I don't think we hit on enough. Just how it would just break this nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I hate to say I think this is a good point, a good place to wrap. Is there anything else you want to add on this?
There's a lot I want to add on
Yeah,
this. I think that, it's hard to talk about it such a wide sweeping and wide ranging topic like this with the caveat if you're trying to fit it into an hour or so of actual discussion,
yeah,
and all of the finer details are the ones where you should lose it. Like as a US voter, the finer details is where you should go, oh no, I'm not for this at all. The idea, the xenophobia implied by I want to deport all of these illegal people, I think is very palatable to people on the day to day. But once you start talking about how much it's going to cost in terms of the economy, how much it's going to cost in terms of the the society around you, and just it becomes staggeringly a bad idea, a very expensive bad idea.
you would think that this would cost people, especially in Trump's administration, some of those richer folk. It would cost them something, wouldn't it? Like, wouldn't this hurt them somehow financially? Um, that's our only. That's to me, that's the only shred of hope left is that these people. Okay, we got elected. You can't do that because that's just going to hurt my
I
net worth.
do think that there will be a bipartisan shadow caucus where Dems and Republicans across the aisle who aren't full blown MAGA will go, all right, we agree that this is a bad idea, right? Like we can. Let's kick the can for 4 years, and
Or
it'll
make it
be like
look
this.
like we've done the things that we haven't done,
Yeah,
like
it's gonna
building
be.
the wall.
I wanted to leave on a good note, so I'm
Okay,
going to continue that
all right, let's
idea.
do that.
This is going to be Trump's wall 2.0.
Okay,
Trump's going to try and build the wall. He campaigned on building the wall. It's going to be the greatest wall it's ever been. He built 20 miles of wall or whatever it was.
it's like 3 feet
And
of wall. It fell over. It's
yeah, he built a 6 hour hike of wall,
yeah,
and it stops no one. It doesn't do what it's meant to do. And it's because it's ill-conceived, expensive, and nobody really wants it outside of campaigning.
right.
The campaign season, oh, we love the wall. The wall's going to be great. When it actually comes to brass tacks, it's going to cost too much. The amount of infrastructure and bodies you have to devote to it costs too much. The actual impact of a functioning wall is negligible. And so nobody put any time into it. It's going to be the same. I believe, I pray to God, it's going to be the same with deportation. I think they're going to keep the same numbers that they have today. You say 2 or 3 times as much. I think it's going to be status. It's going to be business as normal for the Republicans.
Man,
And
I love that. I love ending. I love ending on that note. I don't have anything else to add. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to say that sounds. You know what? That sounds right. But that's not to say that we won't keep fighting on what I believe is the right side of this. So
of course, you can't take it as a given. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep calling for people to do the right thing, which is being loud about how terrible mass deportations are for all the reasons we've laid out. If you need more to read, look in our show notes. We're going to have links there that lay it out in the simplest terms possible as to what this will cost our nation.
Yeah,
share it with your friends. Let them know if they're even on the fence. Just say, "Hey, look at this. Where's this money coming from?"
I mean, hopefully they're willing to read a 16-page report because it is packed with some really fantastic information that I think people just don't think about. So
yeah.
Okay. Thank you everybody for going on this ride with us. You know, this wasn't the episode that we wanted to have, but I think it was time to talk about it. Certainly there are some more current events that I'd like to discuss, but we're gonna save that for next time. So
yeah, we'll get back to making fun of Matt Gaetz next time.
Yeah, definitely. So once again, this is just a call to we are growing our channel. We're it's great to see the numbers on Spotify and on Apple. Really appreciate you guys. So if you could, if you enjoyed the show, if you could leave that 5-star review, if you could ring the bell, do the subscription, put us in your top 8, poke us. I don't know what the kids do on social medias, but do all that for us. We'd
like
really
us,
appreciate it.
like us.
Double like us, but also subscribe. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you next time.